Great, thank you. Well, again, thanks for having me. Pleasure to be a part of this series. I'm excited to chat with you all today, give you a little bit of background on ROOK, about what we do, how we do it, and then how we apply our creative thinking to some of our partners and our brands that we work with to ultimately drive sales, which is which is really our day-to-day job, is helping our clients sell more products. So the first thing I want to sort of set up is that we're not a creative agency, we're a creative partner. Two very different things. We with the way we approach our work and our partnerships with our clients is on a partnership level. Not a partnership level in the typical sense of like we own a part of their company per se, but we work as a partner, as an extension of their team. So they have access to us. We work with them on challenges that may go outside of what we agree to be doing with them. So we kind of go above and beyond. So we act as a true partner. As Brett said, we're based in New York. I started my career in London and moved over in 2007. So, I guess as of today, I'm a New Yorker, given my time here. We work in branding, packaging, creative production. My background over the 20 years has been predominantly in branding and packaging. I got to work at, as Brett said, Pearl Fisher and the Brand Union, some great agencies. I got to work with some great co-workers and peers that have gone on to build very successful agencies and become very influential creative directors. And as I said, our job is to develop and produce actionable brand creative that builds awareness, drives velocity, which is what this conversation is going to be more about, and positively impacts culture. I've managed to do that with my partner in crime, my co-founder, and my wife and mother to my children. So for 10 years, Rebecca and I, or nearly 10 years, Rebecca and I have been doing this, been building ROOK from the ground up, from the kitchen counter to where we are today. Fortunate to have her be my partner, and she really acts as we really sort of balance each other out really well. So very fortunate to have her on the team. And to sort of reiterate, our difference and why ROOK is different as an agency and the way that we think is different, is that we actually have experience as an agency, as an internal agency, or an internal creative team, brand creators and investors. So we come to the table with a very unique perspective of what matters most to the brands that we work with, and not just the brands, but also the brand marketers or the person in charge of the creative exercise, and also the outcomes that's going to affect on the valuation of the company, and that obviously then how that affects the way investors want to invest their capital or sort of squeeze the agency or squeeze the company. So we don't come at it from just one perspective. We have that in the back of our mind with every project that we undertake. So we understand sales, we understand retail partnerships, the importance of those relationships. We understand the needs of marketing teams. We understand distribution challenges, and that's the way we think good creative will and can solve for. So, when we sort of go through a creative process, the way that we don't try to sell the client on our work. We sell the client an idea that sells. Two very different things. We don't try to push work through for the sake of creative's sake. We are selling work or pushing work through that we believe is going to help create sales for our clients. To that point, I think this is the most important page of this entire presentation. The presentation does get more colorful. We're going to show some examples of the way that we think about the principles, but this page, screenshot it, it's important. The brands, certainly from a brand that is selling a product, a consumer packaged product, a beverage, a snack, deodorant, whatever it might be, anything that's going to be on the retail shelf and I could argue also on, in digital, but more so in retail. It's the 24, that piece of work, that object is going to sell 24/7, 365 days of the year. It is the greatest salesperson that ever lived. It's the most important member of the entire organization. It's the MVP. It's the one asset that's going to constantly and consistently tell the brand story, the reason to believe, the details of that brand and of that product. And it has to quickly and cleverly be disruptive to really draw the consumer in, to draw get the retailer excited, to excite investors, to convert consumers. It's the most important thing in the entire arsenal of a brand team. If you think about it this way, and this is going to help you guys when you pitch new clients for new business, they'll spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on sales team members, but yet they might sort of not be open to spending $100,000 on a redesign project or brand creation project. That will be the cheapest person they'll ever purchase, or they'll ever sort of invest in, and the ROI on that is going to far outperform any human being. So it's incredibly important that the brand's package at shelf is working as hard as it possibly can, because it will work consistently hard every single day. So the way that we think about creating packaging, we must create packaging that makes you smile in the mind. So what we mean by that is a clever connection, emotional connection to the consumer. The example that we're showing here is Love Corn, which we actually co-founded, co-created. We created the name, we created the brand identity, we created the package design, we created the story. So really this, the brand that we created here was very much supposed to be the concept was this idea of creating a love letter to the consumer. Hence why we had love, corn. And every single package had its own sort of personality, had its own story. It started out very differently. In the instance which we're showing you here, sea salt, we start with hello there. On barbecue, it's howdy. So we start to really build in personality to the packaging that sort of engages with the consumer in a thoughtful, emotional way. Create packaging that triggers a memory. Carbo chips, good example here of a brand that we worked on several years back, to really embody the spirit of Baja, California. So we took the scenery, the surroundings, the beach vibe, the surf culture, the relaxed attitude, and we sort of layered that all together. So from using sort of a letterpress texture, from using almost a landscape scene that you have with all the, how we lay out the color at the bottom of the packaging, to the way that we layer in the reference to beach culture, and then we layer that in with ingredients or flavor. The idea was to really sort of get a sense of spirit, and that, I can be there, or it reminds me of. And that's the way we were thinking about Carbo chips. Create packaging that feels made for you. Bevel was, we got to work with an amazing entrepreneur in Tristan Walker, and we developed this packaging system and this unboxing experience and this very custom-made system for Black men that at the time, we talked about 8 years ago, was completely underserved, didn't exist. They were still being sold 3, 4, 5 razor blades, which doesn't work for that hair type. So we created this experience that was made for them and for that community, and make it, not cliche. We made this sort of modern, contemporary. This sort of sat next to Harry's. It sat next to sort of more contemporary brands that historically just didn't serve that community, and that's what we worked really hard on here with Tristan and Co. Create packaging that tingles the taste buds, right? I mean, kind of seems obvious, but when we're selling food, let's show food. I know there's a big push, to sometimes be more more restrained and not show ingredients and just do clean packaging. I think that's one way to go. I think the challenge for 88 Acres was they're a seed-based company that sells all products, with a base of seeds, so they're completely allergen-free, free of, nut-free, all that. We don't lead with the free ofs. We lead with what we are, and that's where with delicious bars, with delicious butters. And we brought that to life for them in this new round of work that we did. Ironically, this is a great example of true partnership. We've been working with them for 4 years, and actually we redesigned their work 4 years ago. And fast forward, 2.5 years or 3 years, we redesigned our own work, which was an immense challenge for us because we loved what we did, but times changed, and the consumer is the one that's telling us what's working and what's not working. So it was doing a lot of consumer, social listening. It was also, from COVID, where stores closed, retail were not doing tastings anymore. They weren't doing samplings. So how do we convince a consumer to pick up this bar over Kind Bar, which is a little bit cheaper? This is more expensive. But why are we giving them the reason to pick this up? So, we sort of talk about, it's warm and spiced cinnamon maple. So we're giving the consumer a sense of what it's going to taste like. Then we're showing them the ingredients. We've got bright, bold colors. Again, that's a visual cue to great flavor. And then obviously we've got this amazing photography that we're showing on the outer box. And then when we open up the wrapper, we actually show the bar. And then again, in some cases, we use language like apple ginger crisp instead of ginger apple, which was just an association to, a pie or a dessert that your grandmother or your mother might used to make for you. So again, it was all these little details of trying to help the consumer understand what the taste expectation and how they should be thinking about this product before they've even bought it. And, we need to create packaging that speaks without saying a word. So obviously, this does have wording on it, but it's the idea that we're trying to communicate, what we are very quickly. We created, and this is another co-creation project, co-founded this brand, Culture Pop Soda, which is in America exclusively. We came up with a name originally, Pop Culture, because we're a probiotic soda. That's where the culture part came in. We couldn't trademark pop culture. So actually, and quite fortunately, I think, we actually then rearranged it to Culture Pop. So it's that idea of a probiotic soda, the way that we laid everything out, it's actually in some ways does read pop culture, but then just the integration of the ingredient, whether it's an illustration, photography, whatever it is, with the word pop, sort of gives you that immediate, I understand what this is going to taste like. It's going to be a flavor that pops with lemon. And then subsequently at the bottom of the packaging, we talk about the other ingredients that are in it, but we lead with the familiar, and then we talk about fizzy and gutsy. So again, it's this hierarchy of messaging that's really helping the consumer understand what the taste expectation is, or what the benefit is, or what they should be expecting. And our job and the whole point of this conversation is creating packaging that sells and lasts. Health Aid Kombucha, we redesigned Health Aid Kombucha 10 years ago. They just subsequently went through a redesign, a portfolio consolidation. But when we met them 10 years ago, and we got to work with Jason and Dinah and the rest of the team, they were very much a farmer's market brand. They were in the kombucha space. Kombucha 10 years ago was still very new. GT Dave's was probably the predominant force in the kombucha category then, doing a great job. But they were very, traditional kombucha flavors. And Health Aid came on the scene with these farmers market inspired flavors. So apple, pomegranate, ginger, cayenne. I'm sure, some of you, if not all of you, are familiar with this brand. But it was very much in that sense that it was a farmer's market brand. It looked like a farmer's market brand. It had a very generic bottle. It had a brown label, blue type, all very condensed. I'm going to show you the before and after at the end of this presentation too. And our job was to free that up, make sure people understood what kombucha was. First of all, it's health aid, it's kombucha, and then it's a bubbly probiotic tea, and then there's the flavor. We simplified the packaging for them. We cleaned the packaging up. We made it more approachable to the consumer. We allowed it to, really stand out on shelf. And we created a system that allowed them to grow the line to 15 SKUs and move on to subcategories as well. And, when we met them, I'd say they were in the low millions in revenue. And, it's known and been published that they did over $200 million last year, and they just took a massive round of investment. And that was with our redesign. So obviously there's a bigger part just beyond our packaging. The product's got to be good. You've got to have fearless leaders and great marketers on their side as well. So by no means am I saying what we do is the full reason as to why they've been so successful, but it's a huge component of any brand of the design working that hard, and that's simply for them to allow them to continue to grow. So I'll go into the principles of the way we think about and the way we approach our design thinking. And it's a 3-step principle. The first principle is we intrigue at 10. So intriguing people at 10 feet is the thing. As we think about walking down the aisle, we all consume, we all go into to Target, to Walmart, to Wegmans, to Tesco's, to Waitrose, wherever you might be. And generally speaking, if you walk down the middle of the aisle, it's generally 3 feet away, but we take a step back from that because we want to think about it from a 10 feet perspective. So we study the environment, we understand the category cues, or we explore the category cues, then we exploit and disrupt the status quo that allows us to draw the consumer in. So from a distance, a lot of the work that you've seen us sort of show so far, we're colorful, we're bold, we're trying to create a disruptive package in that competitive set that doesn't look anything like its competitive set. And that applies not just to packaging in store, that applies to fashion, that applies to fast casual, as we did with And Pizza, creating a very bold counterculture, design, and creating, coming up with a name, And Pizza, and then using the ampersand as a design element that just drew people in, that turned the pizza shop into a cultural hub, into a destination. As with Alicia's seasonings, it's bringing the spirits and the energy of making food to life through amazing pattern and amazing color, and the same with Culture Pop. If you look at the set that we play in Culture Pop, you've got Olipop, United Sodas of America, Wave, you've got Poppy. I would say that when you look at that set, I think, from a branding standpoint, from a color standpoint, we stand out for the right reasons. And again, draws the consumer in. So, and then the second principle is we want to encourage at 3 feet. So what do we mean by encourage? At 3 feet, you can pretty much see a lot of what's on the packaging, unless you've got really bad eyesight like me. So maybe it's a little bit closer than 3 feet. But we want to craft that message, the visual and verbal message, and then play with the aesthetic to look unique on shelf. And the most important thing, and I think this is something as designers that we can get caught up on or forget, we have to really make sure that we explain to the consumer very simply and quickly what the product is and why they should pick it up. Tell them what it is, convince them with the benefits, convince them with the detail. Whether it's with a brand that has actually maybe very little detail or very little benefit, there's still always a little nugget in hierarchical information that you can pull out that can really help encourage the consumer to want to pick up the brand. And there's just some good examples here. You can argue that all of our work works at 10 feet, 3 feet in the hand, but principally when we get to 3 feet, we want to be able to show the consumer what they should be expecting, the little details. With Burritos, we created this their iconic bear. We changed the personality of the face depending on the flavor. So again, it was that unique little emotional connection. It was that unique detail that, again, just wanted to encourage the consumer to just step in and pick up that package. And that's the same with Love Corn. I mean, the back of pack is as engaging as the front of pack, but we've got to draw them in to get them to pick it up. And that's where we think about the 3 feet rule, is just starting to add more layers of information, more layers of hierarchy that will ultimately get the consumer to pick it up. So once they picked it up, we've got to convince them in the hand. And this is the fun part, I think, of packaging, is that packaging isn't just flat. It's not digital. It's not it's not a piece of paper. It's an object. It's something we can turn upside down. It's something we can rotate. It's something that interacts with typography in a really amazing way. So, whether it's a soda can, a bag of corn, a pizza box, whatever it might be, it's the attention to detail in these executions that can help really drive brand affinity, or further brand intrigue, and ultimately convince the consumer to buy the product. And I think just the idea that you can change the "please recycle me" statement to something more engaging, or you can do something really interesting structurally with the cap of a water bottle. Those little details are just going to set every brand, a brand apart from their competitive set. It's going to convince the consumer that if this brand is doing things at this level of detail, the product must be great. Or, if it's this level of detail, they must be using the right ingredients, and they must be super thoughtful about the way that they are constructing their t-shirts. So attention to detail in the hand is the thing that I believe helps convert the consumer. So whether it's a fashion brand label, whether it's a kombucha, whether it's a bag of corn, it's all these little touches that really add that extra level of premiumness, or convincing to the consumer. So with Weekend Nation, a fashion label that we did, again, it's not sold on shelf, but when you go in store, it's the detail and the stitching, it's the double label, not a single label, it's the message on that label. With Health Aid Kombucha, it's we custom created that structure, so it had the tagline, it had the stamp of the anchor on it. And on the bottom of the pack itself, or the glass structure itself, we had a giant anchor. So when it becomes wet, if you move it, it will stamp the logo onto the surface that you're on. Even the detail of the cap, we changed the detail in that cap design so that instead of it just being a traditional linear texture on the cap, we actually turned it into bubbles. So that, again, linked to the tagline of bubbly probiotic tea. So again, those little details. And Avua Cachaça, for example, we created this structure that was supposed to be representative of, the vistas in Brazil on Copacabana Beach. So everything was asymmetrical. It was, tapered. It was a chamfered edge. So, it was a handwritten label. It was, even the detail of the logo itself, just interacting with the native bird of Brazil, acting like its little beak. Those little details are incredibly important as we kind of go through the process of building out these designs. So, when you think about everything that we've just spoken about there, it's working with clients, building true relationships with clients is hugely important. That, building the trust with them, them knowing that we have their back to try and help them create packaging and create an experience that's going to help them sell their products is hugely important. It gives us more weight as designers, as creatives, as a partner. And ultimately, when we sort of get to that level as well, I mean, we've been fortunate enough to work with some amazing founders with amazing products that have become, great, true friends of ours. If you think about, certainly in our set, we work with a lot of startup businesses. We do work with bigger agencies as well. But even brand managers within those agencies have become friends. We've helped them further their careers. We've helped them create tools that has driven their business forward. And I think when you think about some of the skin in the game that they have when they're launching their own brands, remortgaging their homes or putting all their life savings into something. It's a hugely important responsibility we have as creatives to make sure that we're partnering in the right way with these companies and entrepreneurs to help them drive change and help them become successful. And like I said, it really works when you're working with game-changing products. Again, we have been very fortunate at ROOK that we've been selective with our clients for the most part, and the products have been excellent. They've been, on trend, future game-changing trends, and combining great products with great relationships with our clients and doing what we do and thinking about the way we think about creative. Ultimately, that's going to drive profitability for those companies. That's going to drive sales for those companies, which ultimately is what we're supposed to do as creatives and as an agency and as a partner. So, I'm going to kind of, just skip through some before and afters just to show you again some of the work that we've been doing, how we've sort of changed the trajectory of some of these businesses, and at the end we can kind of go through some questions, Brett. So I'm just gonna, one last thing before we jump into some questions. The one thing I want you guys to think through, and this is also for brands to think through this as well, is, a brand is not a brand that you have to give away. A brand is a brand that a customer, retailer, distributor, investor is willing to pay for. Now, I think we see this a lot in, the Instagram brands, giveaways after giveaways and free samples and, buy a pack, get one pack free. I think when you truly create a great brand, that includes your packaging, great messaging and a great product, it's something that a customer is willing to pay for. And I think a part of what we do and what good creative can do is help build that brand that someone is willing to pay for. I think this is bigger than just a creative conversation. This is just a thought process that we have and an opinion we have at Culture Pop, at Lovecorn, at ROOK, Arco Ventures. We have to build brand with value that someone is willing to pay for, not to give it away for free. Cheers.
All right. Does anyone have any questions or comments?
I'd actually like to ask a question. First of all, thank you so much for the presentation. I think it was super inspirational and really fun to see all the great stuff. And what my question would be, I think it's so interesting that for me, this is the first session with a designer in the whole program that we're having right now. And what I was just wondering about was that I'm an art directress in an advertising agency. So what we do a lot is to think about gold ideas and do initiative stuff to be more creative. Would you say that there's a similar thing when you do packaging? Is there something for example, the client that every packaging designer wants to work on, or are there initiative packaging projects because you think I have this great idea and I gotta visualize it or something? You know what I mean?
So I'm not really understanding the question. Sorry.
I'm just asking if there, in advertising, it's usual to do a lot of initiative ideas to present to clients just for the sake of selling a really crazy idea. Would you say that there's a similar thing when it comes to packaging? Would you say there are moments when you have like a super crazy or great packaging idea, and then you maybe, for example, initiatively approach it to a client or something?
Yeah, I mean, meaning that, you know, we come up with the idea and we can pitch it to the client, and sort of, because we sort of, you know, we feel it's really strong. I think, look, you know, the way that, as I said, that we've worked, I think, you know, we do a lot of what I've spoken here feels very kind of systematic. Like we're trying to drive sales. That doesn't hinder the way we think about creative. I would say that the way that we position a concept whenever we present it, as crazy as it might be, or as you know, out of the box it might be, as long as we believe there's an opportunity for it to be disruptive in the right way, we're all for it. I think that the difference with packaging to advertising, to these Instagram brands, to digital media, that is something that cycles out, right? There's a campaign. It generally lasts, you know, it can last however long, you know, however much money you've got, depends on how long it can last. But packaging is something that, it's an undertaking to do packaging, right? It takes probably a year to implement it if you've got a mid-sized portfolio. There's a lot of components that go into it. And then when it's on shelf, you've got to give it the runway and the time to grow and help build the business. So as long as we feel, if it's a disruptive idea that we're coming to the client with to initiate and say, hey, we think we've got an idea that's going to be super disruptive, provided that's got a long-term, you know, it can be in market for a long time. You know, we talk about timeless design a lot. Then yes, then we push that as hard as we can because we believe in it and we believe it's going to stand the test of time. If it's, you know, arguably, if it's something that's more of a, you know, limited edition campaign sort of concept, then I would position it that way. I would never position it like this is how we reinvent the brand, when we feel like we might have to redesign it in 12 months' time. That's just not the way that we think about it. That's not to say that's not the right approach. It's just the approach I don't take or we don't take. Just because, again, I think that the time and the money that you have to invest into a piece of packaging is far outweighs what's trending or what's fashionable, because the uptick and the cost to the client at the end of the day to redo that in, like I say, 12 months' time is, it just far outweighs, you know, the kind of the bold move, if you like. I hope that answers your question in some way.
It does. Thank you.
We have a question in the chat box from Alexandra Lopez. If you would like to come on the screen and ask Mark your question, or if you want us to just read it out loud, we could do that as well.
Hi, okay, sorry, I can't really turn on my camera right now. But I was wondering if you have tips on how to create interactive packaging. Like, how can we make the packaging like go beyond being just a vessel, you know?
Yep. Well, that's a really good question. I think there's interactive could mean so many different things. Interactive packaging could mean, you know, just great structural design. It could mean a printing technique that allows, you know, like Miller Coors does, or Coors does, where it's, you know, interacts with temperature. So printing, you know, the Rocky Mountains get cold and then they get warm. So I think there's amazing kind of structural and technical printing techniques that we can make interactive. I think a big thing that you're going to see in the next few years, and it's a concept that we've been thinking a lot about, is how packaging, something real and tangible, can become an NFT. How can packaging and brands that are in the physical space sort of transition over to NFTs? And I think that's going to be a really interesting thing that you're going to start to see more of in a sort of a unique way there. And then, you know, there's, as I said, I think it sort of feels to me when I think about interactive, I think about the structure, and I think about packaging and detail of the pack that sort of becomes an engaging conversation or an engaging moment for the consumer. So that's the way I think about it being interactive.
yeah, it's definitely something to think about. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Do we have any other questions or comments?
I'm going to do one today. So I saw when you were doing like the redesign stuff, there was one of the products, Rumble, and Rumble went from like either a cardboard or paper-based box to like a plastic bottle. So like the design of it is amazing. Looks a total big upgrade. But where is there like an environmental consideration to doing repackaging or redesign on some of these products?
Yeah, that's a great question. And the decision to go to the structure on the right was a client directive. That was not a part of our process with them. And, you know, we see this a lot now happening. I think there's maybe I'll get into trouble with this, but there's a misconception around Tetra. Tetra is actually very unrecyclable. When you sort of break it down, Tetra Paks, you know, there's foil, there's plastic, they've got plastic caps. So, you know, when they move to the sort of PET kind of bottle on the right here, you know, with a shrink sleeve was kind of, you know, is removed and can be recycled well, it's more recyclable than the Tetra Pak on the left. So that was a consideration for the Rumble team. The other component as well for them was it worked better on shelf. It meant that the way that they could configure it and pack it in their shippers changed. So all of these little details, in some cases, when we see package redesigns from one brand going from, you know, what you're seeing more recently now is brands moving away from cartons or bottles and moving into cans, you know, there's an environmental aspect to that. And there's also a cost aspect to that, right? Cans are very cheap, or they were cheap until the pandemic, but they are cheaper than plastic and they're more recyclable. And again, I could probably have a conversation with someone about that could argue against that, but there are considerations to environmental reasons. Cost is another big thing. I think when the businesses are more profitable, they can do more things that actually can create more sustainable initiatives. They can use less carton board on giveaways and things like that. So, you know, in some cases, it looks like they're going to something with more plastic. Actually, it's more environmentally friendly. In this case, that was the case for Rumble.
Cool. Thank you. Allie, do you want to come up?
Sure. Do you have a favorite project that you've worked on?
Good question, Allie. Thank you. The answer is no. Every project that we've worked on provides a different challenge, and as a designer, that's what we enjoy. When I set Rook up, or actually when I even got into the design industry, my whole perspective was I didn't want to work a 9-to-5 job. Well, that's accurate. I didn't work a 9-to-5 job. It was much earlier and much later. I was right in that. But what I just found fascinating about the design industry was that every project is different. You can have the same principles, you can have the same approach, you can have a system of the way to get to the end result, but every project provides a different challenge, and every project allows you to learn. It allows you to learn about a new category. It allows you to learn about new products. You know, I mean, I had no idea about kombucha when we worked on Health Aid and learned all about, you know, the way they make it, you know, the health benefits, all these things. So every project to me has a unique challenge. You know, as a purist that loves liquor and and beverage packaging, you know, getting to work with, you know, a glass structure, a label, a closure, those are the things that I get really excited about. But I also get just as excited about, you know, creating a new apple cider vinegar soda on a standard can. So every project, you know, has a different challenge, and I think that's the thing that, frankly, keeps me excited about growing Rook and wanting to be a significant design agency in the future. Because you know, as a service-based business, it's not a lot of fun, but it's a lot of fun working on all these different challenges.
For sure.
Thank you so much, Mark.
Yeah, thank you all. Thanks very much. I appreciate the time. I know you guys are all busy, and you know, please hit us up on you know, Instagram, or my email's in the invite. I'm happy to chat with you directly. that's one thing I'm passionate about, is us all learning from each other. And I hope that you guys got a lot of value from this, and I hope that you can take some of this thinking into the way you do things, and whether it's in the same industry or slightly different industry, that's the goal for me today, and that's why I was excited to be a part of the liaison process. So thanks for your time, and have a great day.